Welcome back to the Wizard Shop. Today we actually have two updates. Some of the updates we have going on with this mess back here that Junior Mint has going on. And the Lotus is 99% done. That's been in this shop for a long time. We've been working, we finally got the parts, we've been waiting and waiting. Let's take a look at these. So Junior Mint's been having a heyday back here. There's parts and pieces everywhere, and he's been making wonderful progress. I'm so excited about this that I dressed up for the occasion just for you guys. Some nice shorts, some pale white legs, and Crocs. Perfect combination, totally matching. So this one came in, and the glow plug system was completely dead. It was wires cut. And that was able to be simply repaired. It just had one wire that was cut without removing a whole bunch. We got that fixed and it still didn't work. So Junior Mint went over to the parts car to this one, took the glow plug control module out, put it into this one, and voila, it works perfect. It starts right up, no more smoke, no more rough running. He's currently got the radiator out and a few other things. He's just going to town on this thing. So Junior Mint was just looking around here. He was going to test a few things, and he actually was going to move this hose just a little bit out of the way. And the neck of the radiator was so weak, and it just crumbled. I watched it, I seen it, it just... I don't even know how it was holding pressure, or maybe it hadn't been. It's just been setting for so long. Luckily, we have a good radiator that came out of this one. So he was in the process of changing those out. I've got a huge list from Worldpac. We've got flex disc and motor mounts, filters, all kinds of things ordered for this. It's going to be 2 or 3 boxes. And as soon as those arrive, in combination with everything we need off of this car, we will be able to get this thing safe and happy back on the road. There's several things on this car over the years that have been kind of cob jobbed, is what I call it. And these vacuum lines. There's a hole, there's supposed to be a port here, it's just an open hole. That could very well be our vacuum leak. And this is kind of just a bunch of spliced together vacuum lines. That one's all got a big hole in it. It's really a spaghetti mess right here is what this is. We're going to be taking from the brake booster all the way to the vacuum pump and all this mess out and throwing it in the trash. Let me show you what we got over here. So although it's pretty dusty on this parts car, all of these hoses and plastic lines are all intact. They're not cracked, they're not broken. We'll be able to just unbolt them from this car and move it over to that car. Some of you have mentioned in the comments on the previous video on these cars that we could convert this 85 vacuum system into the 84 model. It's an updated system. We may very well do that. Save a lot of trouble, a lot of headaches. So far this parts car has been a boon. It's been wonderful. We've been starting to dig into this car and they're like, oh, that's broke, or this is missing, or that's gone. And then we come over to this car, there it is, it's in good shape, we just swap it over. It's already paid for itself in those few parts. And just like this, what the heck? What was that doing inside of the washer bottle? It is hot in here today, and I'm glad I found that. I'll set it right here for now. So anyways, like I said, it's already paid for itself. The parts that we've replaced, the glow plug control module, the vacuum hoses and lines, and several other pieces and parts that we've already robbed off this car. I guess we haven't robbed them, I paid for it. Those parts alone are worth what I paid for the car. Everything else here is sheer profit. So I can't complain about the route we took on this to get this done for this customer. He's going to be very happy with a good running car again. Some of you have mentioned in the comments that once we're done, you want to ask for some of the parts off of this parts car. I'll be happy to do that. Whatever's left, minus the engine, I'll probably keep the engine. But any kind of parts or things, or door trim, or door handles, or whatever that you might need, we'll let you know in a future video when that stuff's available, and you can contact us and tell us what you need, and when payment is cleared, we'll be happy to send it to you. Man, I'm glad whoever left that there left that for me. That's wonderful, refreshing. Junior Mint was jacking this up, and we talked about in the previous video that it was rusty and crusty on the bottom, and he found that out really quick. He started jacking up, and it just kept going, but the car wasn't moving. It just crunching, and so we've got a jack stand and a jack under here, and it's holding very nicely. I found some solid metal. But the body of this car, especially the undercarriage, is completely unusable. It's shot. We don't have a whole lot to do in the interior other than some things like a window regulator, maybe some vacuum leaks, a few little switches here or there. We're not going to redo the interior. We're not an upholstery shop. We're also not going to repaint his car or fix body work. We don't do that here. We're going to get it mechanically safe and functioning and roadworthy for his daughter to drive. That's the goal here on this car. And the bumper that's sitting in the back seat will be bolted back on where it's supposed to be, not in the back seat. Again, I don't know why that's there, but it doesn't matter. We will be putting it back on. And that's the extent of my body work. That will be all that we do as far as body is concerned. So we have the entire harness here, any of the connectors or any pieces that we need. This one came off of an 84 as well. We've been looking under the dash and the rest of the car, and the wiring looks great. The damage, the extent of the damage was under the hood. So any of the connectors, like let's say this right here was all chewed up and damaged, we will cut it here and splice it into the harness. It will save a lot of labor for the customer, and we will have an original plug and everything back in action like it's supposed to be. When this was running, we noticed that the wiring, there was power, everything that needed to be there for the alternator to work was there, but the alternator was not charging. We went over to the parts car, started it up, and it charges perfectly. So we're swapping out the alternators as well. Junior Man absolutely loves this kind of work. It doesn't require so much supervision. It's pretty much just nuts and bolts. This doesn't work. Take it off of this car and put it on this car. Now it does work. It's very, very easy, and he can just stay with the program all day long. I've actually had to come over here and say, hey, Junior Man, it's time for lunch. You need to actually stop working and go get something to eat. He's like, oh, okay, I guess I will. He really, really enjoys this work. This is a perfect project for him. I wanted to say one more thanks to Charles, who brought us this car. It's been a godsend to be able to just literally 5 feet away, get every part that we could ever need. Obviously on a car like this, not everything is going to be in perfect shape. We will test and make sure it's working on this car, and if it does, then it makes the grade and gets passed on to this car. We're not going to pass on pieces of junk that don't work. So far, everything has worked. I've been very happy with it. So as bad as it was, and the floors rotted out and the windshield's busted in, most of the components were still functioning. I'm very happy about that. Let's go take a look at the Lotus. This is a 95 Lotus Esprit Turbo S4S, and it's been in the shop a long, long time. I actually let the owner, Bill, order his own parts. It saved a little time, and it saved a lot of stress and headache for me. These parts are not easy to come by on this car. There was 2 or 3 companies that he used, that's the common companies to use, but even at that, it was very stressful for him. Everything had to come from across the pond in England, or ocean, I guess you could call it. And with everything we're going through right now and the situation we're in, shipping is a nightmare. I have noticed that myself ordering parts here in the States. You can watch tracking and the part gets halfway here and then it just disappears. And it'll say, oh, there's a delay. And 2 or 3 weeks later the part shows up. Where did it go? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's really strange. But every time we would get something apart, we would find this part is needed or that part is needed, and he would happily order the parts. Then there would be a delay. Then it was held in customs. And one of the parts he ordered recently sat in customs for 4 weeks before it was released. There's no amount of money you can pay to solve that problem. There's no faster service. So that has been the bane. Over there we talked about a boon. This is a bane. The shipping on these parts has been a bane on this. That's what's taken so long on this. It's 99% done. Yesterday I finished. The last thing that needed to fix was the temperature control valve. The little cable was broken inside the dash. I got that fixed. There was 2 complaints here on the climate control. One of them was that the vacuum operation of the vent defrost right here wasn't working. We found that it was a faulty vacuum pump. There's a little electric vacuum pump in the back. It was bad. We got that replaced. That is fixed now. But for the longest time, his temperature selection dial was not doing anything. And in between the winter and the summer, he'd have to get under this little access panel that I'll show you here in a minute with his finger and force it to go to hot or to cold. He didn't understand why it broke. But after getting this all apart, I'll show you here what broke. On the far left of the screen you see a green cable. It's like a lime green. The tip of that was broken and it was no longer connected to the dial, wasn't doing anything. I pulled it apart, cut back some of the sheath around the cable and reattached it. Everything is working beautifully now. Let's take a look in the front trunk, or the frunk as they call it. As you can see in the mirror, there's like a gold brass colored heater valve inside of there. It's way up inside of this cowl, I guess you would call it. That valve actually sits right here. And in Lotus's genius design, this is a body on frame type of design. While the body was off, they installed the heater valve, and when they assemble it, you cannot get to it. You can't take this off and get to it. You can kind of see it in the mirror like we showed you. I pity the person that has to replace that. Luckily it still worked and the cable still operated everything just fine. I was really scared that it was broken inside of there, but it wasn't. But it's very, very odd to put something like that you can't get to. The reason why I have the seat out is because I was able to lay in the floor and look up under the dash, and there was just a small amount of room where I could reach and touch the heater valve. I can expect to make sure it's not leaking, that it's not seized up or something was wrong. But even at that, I wouldn't be able to remove it or replace it. There's heater hoses that go to it, and I don't know, I would imagine it'd be a huge job to get to. Luckily it was in good shape. I'll put the seat back in and reassemble the dash and go on for a road test. We will do one last video on this when it's done and road ready without all the parts and pieces apart. But 99% done now. I'm really, really excited about it. We just finished up putting the transmission back in. In the previous video on this car, you saw that we removed the transmission and Bill took it and had it resealed. He got several other issues taken care of, or refreshed, and brought it back. We installed a brand new clutch disc, brand new pressure plate, everything all new, put the transmission back in, and it works perfect. When it came in here, the clutch did not work perfect. I'm not sure what happened with it. It was installed wrong or whatever happened, and it's been something he's been fighting with for a while. But the fighting is over. We solved it, all new components, he's back in business. It drives, it runs, it does everything that it's supposed to do. And just a recap for those of you who are like, well, why was the car even here in the first place? What was it brought in for? It originally had a blown head gasket. He had it modified. I'm not sure where. I'm not going to mention names or point fingers. But he had it modified, and it wasn't a few weeks after that that the head gasket blew. He hadn't had any trouble with it up until that point. I personally think it was pushed beyond its limit. It went a little too far. But I've had the engine torn all the way down to the block. The head was off, and we put a new head gasket, new head studs, all new hardware, everything replaced. And while we're there, you can see the blue colored timing belt up front. Has a new timing belt, new tensioner, new bearings, everything's been replaced. And the water pump was rebuilt. He had it sent off and had it remanufactured and got that back together and put it in. So it's basically the top end has been pretty much redone. It runs perfectly. He actually has driven it already before we did the clutch. It still had some issues with the clutch, but he was testing the engine and he was very happy with the engine. He agreed it is back where it used to be and he's very happy with it. Ironically, the transmission sits under this floor right here. That's easily removed and you can get to the transmission. We pulled the transmission out the top, but we had to go from underneath to undo everything, all the bolts, the CV shafts, linkages and everything. We got the transmission scooted back just enough room, just barely enough room, and we pulled it out the top. I suppose if you were picking up groceries and you were buying some ice cream, it would be a bad idea to put them back here because it's going to melt really fast. This whole area gets really hot. That would be a bad idea. After we got the clutch replaced, everything back together, we knew it was fixed because before you could push the clutch all the way down and you couldn't get it into reverse. It was, I'll even make the sound for you. That's what it did going into reverse. And the owner was like, I don't know why I had this clutch replaced and I've been fighting this ever since. Can you solve it, Car Wizard? When I took it apart, there were some things I believe that weren't assembled correctly with the clutch. We got a new clutch in, we got everything set up to spec, and now you can put it through all the gears No problem. No more grinding, no more crunching, smooth engagement in all gears. So the owner is very excited. He's like, can I come get my car? I'm like, well, no, not yet. We still have some reassembly to do and a few other things, and I need to road test it and make sure it's good. But we're really, really that close to getting this car out of here. I'm happy. I'm happy that he's going to have his car back on the road again, and it'll be a nice payday for me. But I will be happy to have this out of the shop, because no matter how cool the car is, any car gets old when it sits and sits and sits and sits in your shop. That's where we're at on the Lotus. So we're finishing up one project, and we're just now diving into another one. I'll be happy to get this one done and delivered. I will also be happy when we get this one done and delivered, but this one's going really well. I'm really happy with the progress on that. We're making things work again that haven't worked in years and years and years. The car is slowly coming back to life and back to its old self. We'll do more updates on this as we go, different issues we find or what we ran into. And we'll do one more video on this once it's finally done, and then it will be gone and out of the shop. And I'll be able to say, bye-bye, Lotus. Bye-bye. So I'm glad you guys could follow along and check up on the updates on this and also on the Lotus. Several people have asked, where's the Lotus at? What's going on with that? Well, now you know. The next video that's going to come out is actually a creation of Mrs. Wizard. It's a YouTube poop video, as they call them. She actually did a YouTube poop on me. But hopefully it's comical. The next video, you're not going to have anything to do that will help you work on your car. It's going to be just strictly comic relief. And in what we're dealing with right now with the economy and everything, the way things are going, a little comic relief can go a long way. If you're curious what kind of tools I use in the shop, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. I get a very small cut out of that, and I'm really pleased when you guys purchase a lot of tools. It helps me out, helps keeps this place going. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, go ahead and do that now. We've got many more cool projects coming. Thanks for watching.